Negotiating a renewal or upsell shouldn't feel like a hostage scene. Todd Caponi, my guest today, believes that account managers can stop haggling on price and start trading on value using 4 simple levers that he's come up with that are part of a brand new book coming out soon. In today's episode, we make renewals cleaner, faster, and more profitable by putting our cards face up on the table and giving the deal a sound basis. We talk about what the customer buys, how fast they pay, how long they commit, and when they sign. We dig into when to introduce the timing offer, how to avoid easy gives, and how to coach champions to negotiate inside their own organization. Todd brings research, sales history, and operator stories that you can immediately use as your Q4 is ramping up and negotiations are starting for your end of year renewals. In today's episode, you're going to learn a repeatable lever-first script for renewal calls, how to trade timing, scope, terms, and payment instead of price, and a simple value ledger that stops discounts from creeping into your profits. I hope you enjoy this episode of Account Management Secrets. If you're an account manager, you already know this. You're the one keeping the business running. You own the client relationships, drive the revenue, and solve the tough problems for your customers. But here's the challenge. Most companies don't give account managers the training or recognition they deserve. That's what you'll get here on the Account Management Secrets podcast. I'm Alex Raymond, and after working with thousands of account managers, I know what separates the best from the rest. In this show, we cover exactly what you need to succeed: handling tough client conversations, driving renewals and upsells with confidence, and proving your value every single day. There's no fluff, no outdated sales tactics, just real practical strategies you can use right now to grow your accounts and build a successful career. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, hit subscribe and let's get into it. Hey, Todd, great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Psyched that you're here and really excited to get into this topic around negotiation. So this is a big deal for a lot of account managers, and I was really drawn to want to talk to you about your new book. You got a new book coming out in January 2026 called 4 Levers Negotiating. So really excited to hear about that. And the reason that this is important is, in my experience, account managers just run to the farthest corner of the room anytime the topic of negotiating comes up. It's a lot of people don't see this as a strength. They get scared of it, and they simply don't want to negotiate. I've always taken the point of view that's like, negotiation is co-creating value with someone else. Let's show up. Let's figure out what everyone's needs are. Let's see if we can actually create a win-win situation. That's kind of the school I grew up in, so to speak. And I took a great course on this when I got my MBA many years ago. And in fact, one of the flagship programs that we have in Amplify today is called Negotiating Renewals and Upsells Like a Boss. And so I'm hoping that this will add to our canon and understanding of negotiation, if you will. So I'd love to just start, Todd. I mean, you've been in sales and sales leadership roles for a long time. You've written other incredible books, and I would like to just start with, what's your advice to account managers and account management leaders on simply how to approach and how to think of a negotiation? So specifically around renewals, because that's our most common frame, but like, how do we even start to crystallize this in our heads?
Yeah, well, let's start with how they shouldn't think about it. It really was born from this thought that even growing up in sales myself, I always sucked at traditional negotiating because it really represented, and your account managers listening to this probably feel this, that you build a relationship with your customers. You're focused on helping them achieve optimal outcomes. And then we get to, all right, let's talk price, let's talk terms. And all of us feel like, all right, now I got to change personalities. I'm going to start lying to you now. I'm going to focus less on your outcomes and kind of have to focus on my outcomes now. And what's even worse is most of what I learned growing up was based on the negotiation techniques of former FBI hostage negotiators. Like that's nuts to me. Like no shade at Chris Voss's book. It is fantastic. It combines all my favorite stuff, behavioral science, FBI intrigue. But nobody that's listening to this is releasing hostages from a bank heist. Nobody that's listening to this gets to tase the customer after the deal's done and drag them to jail. In every case, you need to be building trust. You need to be discounting less. You need to be able to forecast. And so to start with, like, I hope everybody kind of gets that out of their brains, that when you have to start thinking about negotiating, it ain't that. All right. So that's number one. Number two is, you talked about this idea of kind of that mutual relationship. Like that's what negotiation should be. And that should be our lens. Unfortunately, nobody had ever really been taught a simple way to communicate that. And when we do it right, here's a bit of a weird analogy. For anybody you've all gone grocery shopping, right? So you fill up your cart, you got all your groceries in it, you go to the cashier. You would never think to go, I have a budget issue. I'm going to need 10% off.
Right.
They'd be like, buy 10% less, jackass, right? Like they would never, it doesn't, like we don't even think about asking because the price is based on something. And I think in the B2B world, we have no something, right? We use the word propose. Like, here's the proposal, here it comes, right? Instead of, listen, here is what it costs and here's what it's based on. These are the four things. We can go through those, Alex, when you're ready. But like these are the four things that the pricing's based on. So there's some flexibility in there, but this is the price. Let's have a discussion around it. You start to build confidence. You don't have to be gross. You don't need gold chains. You don't need a plaid jacket, right? You can just have a good conversation that like, here's the price. Here's what it's based on. Let's talk through it. It doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to be trust eroding either.
Yeah. And for me, one of the things that I remember and one of the things I talk to a lot of account managers about is we've got to get away from this position-based negotiation.
Yep.
So position-based negotiating is here's where I'm coming from and here's what I'm going to do. And a lot of people will simply use terms like my position is. Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. And what I learned back in the day when I was doing my MBA was to instead shift to interests. And the idea is we all have different interests. So as the supplier or the vendor, I've got a bunch of interests around maximizing my price, but also making the customer successful, getting it, having high advocacy scores, making sure that they're getting their needs met, all this stuff. And maybe I want them to join a customer advisory board, or maybe I want them to do a testimony for the website, or maybe I want them to buy more stuff from me in the future. And then the customer on their side, yes, of course, they're going to have some type of fiscal constraint, some kind of financial constraint, but they also want to make sure that they are decreasing risk, making sure they're most likely to succeed, have a good relationship with you, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of getting out of what you're saying, like this mode of like we're fighting together, like we're not adversaries, right, in a negotiation. The mindset is how can we truly both be better off by working together versus if we weren't working together.
Well, yeah, and when you said we all have interests, I would argue that in the business to business world we all have the same four interests. So I'll kind of lay the four levers on everybody, but every for-profit company in the world, their business is driven by four things. Number one is how much people buy from them. So volume. We want people to buy more stuff, commit to more stuff, not less, right? So I think we can agree to that. Number two is the timing of cash, or we want customers to pay us faster, not slower. Every business, for-profit business in the world is driven by that. Number three is the length of commitment. We want customers to commit to us for a long time, like longer, better, shorter, not as good. And then number four is every for-profit business to business in the world needs to be able to predict. So the timing of the deal or our ability to forecast is really, really important to every company, right? Unpredictability means we can't satisfy investors. We can't resource the business. Predictability, good. And so what I advocate for is those are your cards face up. And those are the same cards for everybody. Commit to more stuff, pay faster, commit longer, Help us forecast. That's it. And so when you're thinking about an upsell, you're thinking about a cross-sell, you're thinking about a renewal, what should be the drivers? That's it. And I think there's an opportunity for you to share that in a way that the customer will understand, because their business is driven by it. Now, them as individuals, like when we're buying something, of course, we want to commit to as little as possible, pay as slowly as possible, commit to the shortest period of time possible, and sign whenever the hell we want, of course, as buyers. But business to business, that becomes an equal ground. Hey, listen, this is what our pricing's based on. Let's work together and figure out how we can get to an outcome. There's your sound basis. You get out of the business of giving away discounts in the form of charity. And now what I'm asking you to do is you're paying for things in the form of a discount that you care about. More volume, faster cash, longer commitment, predictability.
And it's essentially a series of trade-offs that we're making, but we're doing the whole thing in the open.
Exactly.
I mean, we're very clear about the different points that we're either taking or ceding, right?
Well, I would also argue too that, on the new business side, so one of the things that account managers all over the world struggle with is I call it a crap sandwich that's handed to them from the new business team. So the new business team is just like gunslinging, hey, it's the end of September, discounts, here's a coupon, right? And then it gets to renewal, it gets to upsell, it gets to cross-sell. And now we've set that horrible expectation. And now my account managers are like emergency room technicians just trying to save the margins on the deal. That's no way to live. And so that also provides an opportunity for you to be the adult in the room and sit down with the customer and say, hey, listen, let's just go through. To be a for-profit organization, these are the things that drive us. Now, what also happens, though, is that when your new business team starts to ingest the 4 levers and starts to use it in the way they communicate pricing, the way they propose it, the way they negotiate it, I've got tons of stories of at renewal time. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of one, where a SVP of e-commerce was renewing. He hated dealing with sales people, that just hated it. That was him. He called me at renewal time and he's like, Todd, listen, we're up against it. What can you do for us? Our renewal's $120K a year. Help us out. And I was like, Hari, how long have you known me? And he's like, is it the effing levers again? I'm like, yeah, it's the levers, right? And I laid them out for him. He went and negotiated his own deal and came back to me and he's like, hey, instead of paying quarterly, we're going to pay you upfront annually. And instead of renewing for 1 year, we'll renew for 3 years. I think it gets us down to here. Is that right, Todd? I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. I'll send this over to the account manager and I'll talk to you in 3 years, you jerk. I actually didn't say that part. But the point being that he remembers the levers and uses them to negotiate his own deal. That's what you want. If you hate negotiating, arm the customers to negotiate on behalf of you with themselves.
This is a very good point, and so I think it's worth discovering here. I'm going to make a blanket statement that you may or may not agree with. I think a lot of our listeners will agree with. Our customers are terrible negotiators too.
Yeah.
Right. So no one teaches the customer how to negotiate a vendor relationship, just like no one teaches account managers how to deal with our clients. And so as a result, they will default to maximum discount, maximum pressure, position negotiating, and so on, not realizing that they're really limiting the outcomes here. Right? It's a fixed mindset, it's a fixed pie sort of view of the world. And I know that one of the things that you talk about in the new book is, help your customers get through this. And so you have a scorecard. It's very simple. There's 4 levers, only 4, not pretty straightforward to get through. But let's get kind of concrete here. How would you even start this? So where does this belong in the conversation? How do I bring it up? How do I position this stuff to really get the outcome I'm looking for?
Well, yeah, I mean, the analogy I often make is that, for anybody that's ever run a marathon, I'm not a marathon runner. I run best when chased. But when we think about a marathon, it is an event, right? It happens on a day. There's stuff that happens. Negotiation is very similar, that there's an event, like a negotiation event. But just like the marathon, if you didn't train, if you didn't start months earlier, you'd be dead by mile 7. And that's what happens in so much negotiating. And that's one of the challenges account managers always have, is that they're kind of coming to the marathon that they didn't train for. But my perspective on this is and always has been, share it with everybody. So the minute that anybody asks you, like, hey, how do you price this stuff? For you to start with that volume component and just say, hey, listen, our price is primarily driven by units, like how much stuff you're buying, whether it's licenses, users, locations, hours, like whatever that is, just like that's the primary driver. Committing to more, better, and that's reflected in your pricing. So I'm assuming everybody listening, they probably already have tier-based, volume-based discounts built in. But for you to also share with them at least lever 2 and your lever 3, just kind of informally. So how do you price this thing? Well, it's primarily driven by how much stuff you buy, but our pricing model is based on upfront annual net 30 payments, and it requires a minimum of a 1-year commitment. For you to say that. And then when you're actually delivering something in writing, for you to just make it clear that, hey, based on your volume, you've earned this level of discount based on that volume commitment. Oh, by the way, your pricing is based on upfront annual payments net 30 and a minimum of 1-year commitment. Then when the negotiation comes, it becomes easier because you've already laid that out. And that's when I would recommend laying on the fourth one. And I want to dig into the fourth one for a minute, that timing of the deal. Number one is I don't like to share that one too early because, number two, it requires mutual alignment. We got to get out of the business. Like I always joke that for anybody that shops at Kohl's, like the retailer, if you pay full price for anything, I don't think we can be friends anymore. Right? Because, there's always a discount at Kohl's, right? Always, 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 always. And so often there are these fake expiring discounts that are like, hey, you got to do it by the end of the day. It goes away forever. And then next week it's back, but bigger. Timing of the deal is something I like to introduce later. And it sounds like this. Alex, listen, there's tremendous value in our ability to predict our business. We make investments based on it. We have to resource this. So predicting when you're actually going to buy is super valuable so we can be prepared. If you are willing to help us forecast, meaning mutually align around when you expect to sign this and get going, that's valuable to us and something we're willing to pay you for in the form of a discount. You're laying that on during the negotiation, basically. But what ends up happening is instead of the fake expiring discount that everybody knows is BS and they all know that they can get whenever they want, now you're actually explaining the why and you're giving them, they're putting skin in the game here. Like, hey, I'm paying for something. I'm paying for you to help me forecast. And when we do that, we've laid that foundation early. We've laid on that fourth lever during the negotiation process. Like I said, your customers remember it. The number of times that I've heard a sponsor, a deal sponsor, go to a CFO for final approval. And the CFO is like, hey, go see if they'll sharpen the pencil. Like that old stupid phrase, like, go get them to sharpen the pencil. To have the sponsor go, hey, listen, I already have, here's the levers. Here's what drives their pricing model. Are we willing to pay faster? Are we willing to commit a little longer? Are we willing to help them forecast? Are we willing to commit to maybe some more volume? And now all of a sudden you've, like you said, you've enabled your sponsor within the organization to negotiate on your behalf. And you get out of the business of having to negotiate with a CFO too.
There's something that you were saying here that I think a lot of people may have missed the nuance. And I want to share the nuance, at least as far as I understood what you just said. One of the things that I got from you just now is we're giving work to the customer, right? Now, we all have this mindset that's like, oh, I've got to do everything. They say jump, we ask how high. We're the people pleasers, type of thing. You instead are actually purposely introducing a little bit of friction into the process. And this is something I'm a total advocate for. So I agree with this because what we're doing is we're increasing the commitment level from our customer because they are taking small steps on their side to make this their problem, not our problem. And one of the things that account managers are constantly dealing with is just being these yes people, right? And being these people pleasers and feeling like we have to do absolutely everything for our customers. That's not what our customers want. Our customers want a peer, a leader, a guide. They want to solve their business problem. They don't want you to be a doormat. And so you're introducing very small amounts of work for the customer. But my perception is that increases their commitment and makes them more likely to do a deal with you than yes. Because if you simply caved on every single point, you removed every bit of friction, everything is polished, everything is smooth, you're not showing up as an expert and a guide and someone who can actually do stuff for the client. So I just want to point that out for our listeners, because this is one of these mindset shifts. This kind of thing we talk about within Amplify all the time, but it's a mindset shift that once you get it and once you start operating in this way, it's really going to improve your results. What do you think about that, Todd?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of things you said there that jump out. Number one is when you talk about being a guide, like you said, they've never bought what you're selling before. If they have, maybe it's one time. A lot of times account managers are negotiating upsell, cross-sell, renewal with somebody who was not a part of the initial sale, right? Like people are changing jobs, changing roles, so there's an opportunity for you to lay that out. Number two is, when you think about this, we're creating a little bit more friction on the customer's behalf, because we're communicating that, listen, we're paying you for something. What are we getting in return? That's it. What you find is, when you just think about what I talked about earlier, the fact that these 4 levers are the same levers as the company you're selling to, that's how they build the business. Get comfortable with that. Hey, listen, your business runs just like ours. That doesn't require you to, again, go to FBI hostage negotiating school. It should be just a simple communication. Number 3 thing that I will just rant on for a minute. So I live just outside of Chicago. Out the back window here is a forest preserve, and there's a path, and I've got a couple of dogs. And so, when the weather's nice, then, the kids and my wife will walk the dogs. When the weather sucks, it's me, right? Of course, you probably experienced that, right? So it's rainy, it's cold, got the 2 dogs. I go on the path, and my goal is to go down the path, get it done, get it out, let's go. I've got to get inside, I'm getting cold, I'm getting wet. So you go out there, you're walking the dogs. One of the dogs pulls you off the path a little bit, and there's a rock. As you're sitting there watching your dog's getting his business done, there's a rock and there's a little piece of paper sticking out of it. So you're like, what is that? You knock over the rock. There's a $20 bill. You're like, can I keep this? That, holy crap. That was easy. That was lucky. But now what happens? Well, now my priority around getting back to warmth and dryness goes away. And now I'm like, hey, is there more? Should I? And so I start crisscrossing, and now everything just slowed down, and I don't care about the problem as much because there might be these little rewards here. That's a long way of saying that account managers, I hear all the time, a couple of times a week, that we cave on easy things that we say that are easy. For example, customers been paying you net 30, and at renewal or upsell, they're like, hey, new company policy, net 60 payment terms. We're going to require that. And a lot of times I hear the reps go, you know what? I think we can do net 45. I don't even that should be easy. Now, cool. No skin, no problem, right? That's cool. But now what did you just tell the customer? That was an easy rock that they just stumbled over. All they had to do was ask, and now they get to pay slower. What else should I be asking about? Mm-hmm. We create that kind of stuff when we think it's an easy give. I'm telling you that easy give is making it harder on you, because you're going to be asked for more stuff now. Always go back to that sound basis of, hey, you want to pay slower? Cool. Our pricing is based on these 4 things. What can we adjust to make up for that? Because if you got to get to net 60, cool, but maybe you can commit a little longer, or maybe you can accelerate this purchase and help us with our forecast. And maybe you can commit to a little bit more stuff. Again, remember the sound basis, because the minute you give away anything for free, you've just told the customer, all bets are off. That's a little dollar bill under a rock. I got to go start kicking over some other ones.
And I mean, totally fair point on the easy gives. The most egregious form of this is in discounting.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Literally, sometimes the customer just sneezes in your direction and you drop 5%, right?
Right.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So So I always, one of the things that I learned when I was studying this stuff is that there's a lot of things that you can trade off that are not money.
Mhm.
And so what's your approach? And like, how do you recommend people think about this? So yes, I understand the levers and the frame of the discussion, but we need to cast a very wide net when it comes to the things that we are willing to trade off on
Mhm.
that aren't simply money, right? So it could be everything from like maybe it's something around some advocacy program or some marketing thing, or instead of a discount, we're gonna co-invest in some project together and some marketing fund together. Like there's a lot of ways that you can get creative about this that don't just like totally crash your profits on this account. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I will tell you that, first of all the levers move back and forth.
Yeah.
Even if pricing, timing of cash doesn't feel like it matters, it should, because you could probably trade it for something you do get paid for, right? I personally, I'm totally biased, right? I think the levers are the levers. Here's another little rant for you. I don't believe in ever paying for referenceability in case studies. Here's why. And again, another little crazy analogy, but like imagine you're having your kitchen remodeled and you're looking at contractors, right? So you evaluate all these contractors, you're reading case studies on their website. Case studies are influencing your decision. You find one like, wow, that guy, man, that's some incredible success stories. And then I'm going to go with you, Alex. Like, you're the one. I love your, like, everything sounds great. You hand me the contract and like we're negotiating a little bit. And all of a sudden you find out that all of those case studies were paid for. Now, wouldn't that make you feel like, wait a second, the case studies that influenced me, you're going to pay me to do a case study for you that's going to influence somebody? Like, that just erodes the confidence people have in your case studies and your references when you're literally at the goal line saying, listen, you need a discount, we'll pay you in the form of like you providing a reference or a case study for us. I've always been a believer that you earn your case studies, you don't pay for them. That your case studies, when you do pay for them, they have no teeth in a contract anyway, right? Like if you create
you still
a
have to make the
experience,
customer successful. It's still got to work.
Well, exactly. Like customer success, if there's a terrible experience, you're not going to be like, well, we paid you for that. You got to give us a case study anyway. Like that's dumb. And if it's a customer that you've built a great relationship with and incredible outcomes, you should be able to go ask them and go, hey, listen, you've done some amazing things here. By the way, when you ask for case studies, client success, account management, it's about making the customer the hero, not you. Mm-hmm. Right? Your case study should always come from the lens of, look at what you've done. It's amazing what you've done. We're just glad to have played a role in it. We would love to highlight you in the form of a case study. Would you be cool with that? You didn't have to pay for it. So if you want to put something in a contract, cool, that just says, hey, listen, when we create incredible outcomes for you and your organization, we want to reserve the right to come ask you for one. Cool. Don't pay for it, right? Going back to the levers again, though, it's not always dollars for levers. Somebody wants to pay you slower. Can you exchange another year commitment, deal predictability, more volume, upsell, right? With all of those, they don't want to commit to as long a period. All right, cool. Maybe they pay for a shorter commitment. That's what most pricing websites show. However, maybe you want to exchange it for faster payment, predictability, higher volume. So it's not always dollars for dollars, but again, in my biased opinion, stick to the four because those are the drivers of every B2B for-profit business.
Now, what do you do when you have a multi-step negotiation where you're talking to your champion or main buyer and then you get shunted off to procurement or to some other group to continue this? So, the issue is the issue that comes up is we may be like, hey, we negotiated a great deal with our buyer, right? Both sides are happy. We see where we're going. And then we get to procurement, we get some wrenches thrown in there and they're very strict about all this, right? Our company policy is blah, 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 whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So are we then back to the drawing board, 4 levers all over again? Or are you enrolling your champion to go and be your advocate on your behalf? Like, how do we walk through that?
Yeah, the answer is yes to both. Here's what I mean. There was a deal we were doing with a massive CPG company. It was GlaxoSmithKline years ago, multi-million-dollar deal. We had, during the whole pricing discussion, four levers, four levers, four levers, just over and over and over again. So they knew it. It went to procurement. Procurement, they assigned a woman to negotiate. And my CEO was like, I was the CRO at the time. It's like, you're doing the negotiations. I'm like, great. So I get on the phone with this woman, and she is as badass as they come in procurement. Like, she's coming at me with policies and all that kind of stuff, like you said. One of the policies was termination for convenience. That she explained that, listen, in all of our vendor contracts, we have termination for convenience. We will have it in this contract as well. And the key here was going back and saying, hey, listen, cool, I understand, right? So it's not like, it's not our policy because they don't give a crap what my policy is. But to be able to say, hey, listen, as you may be aware, as we've talked about, your pricing is based on four things: how much you buy, how fast you pay, how long you commit, and this mutual alignment around timing. That third one, how long you commit. You can have termination for convenience, but you're probably not going to like it. And here's why. That the pricing at its core is based on a commitment. We're paying you for that predictability. Convenience represents no commitment. And as a result, the pricing would have to change pretty dramatically. So can we talk about like what's really the driver there? Like what instances you see yourself using it? The answer you're likely going to get is already covered in termination for cause or warranty language in your contract or service level commitments. In other words, if we suck, you can get out already, right? What we're trying to protect against is this feeling or this issue of you can get out at any time for any reason. And so we had a healthy debate around that. There's a story in the book about what happened when my CEO made me take termination for convenience for free and how it blew everything up. But side note there, with all of this, it goes back to that initial concept of establishing a sound basis. That your price should be your price regardless who you're talking to, regardless what the process is in an organization, regardless if there's a CFO and a procurement team that each got to get their cut. That shouldn't matter. Your price should be your price, which should be your price. If you're a startup, I get it, right? The price, maybe the market value is not established. But like I've had companies argue with me like, billion-dollar software companies are like, well, the procurement's got to get a piece and the CFOs. I'm like, you got 25,000 customers that are paying you right now. Like, why? How is it sustainable that every one of your customers is paying a different amount based on how well or poorly the negotiation went? That's not sustainable, especially in the world of AI. You've got to establish that consistency, and your customers will appreciate that.
You've mentioned this idea of sound basis a couple of times, so I think I'd like to close on that and just make sure I'm really understanding what you're talking about here. So this is an agreement on why are we buying what we're buying, what problems are we going to solve together, what's success going to look like in the future. At least that's my guess of what all this stuff is. Tell me, like, what do you actually mean? How do you put this together? How do you get everyone to agree on the scope and like what we're actually doing?
Yeah. So this book that I'm holding here for anybody who's watching, this is called Salesmanship Theory and Practice. It's from Thomas Herbert Russell. The year is 1910. Now, I think what you're going to find funny is that the paragraph that I'm going to reference, the title of that paragraph is Buyers Know More Nowadays. Right? Soak that in for a minute.
Yeah.
That at the time, they were worried about the rise of mail order catalogs and advertising being a threat to the sales profession. Clearly didn't happen. Part of that is based on the fact that more information available to buyers hasn't made it easier on them, it's made it harder. But to your question about sound basis, Russell says the knowledge of buyers has increased and they are no longer disposed to pay what is asked of them unless persuaded in their minds that the sellers regulate their prices on some sound basis. Now, when I say some sound basis, I'm referring to, like I said earlier, you go to the grocery store, go to the gas station, you go to a restaurant, you're not negotiating the pricing. You're just assuming that price is the price for some reason and I can either take it or leave it, right? You wouldn't go to a restaurant and negotiate the price of your appetizers because that industry, that world has established some sound basis. B2B has a some sound basis problem in that we have basically told the world through free discounts, through quarter end discounts, through the word proposal, through so many other things that we do, that there is no sound basis, right? To his point, they don't they're not going to pay what's asked of them unless it's regulated. Well, we've never communicated any kind of regulation. So here they come. That's kind of the magic in here. That if you can frame your pricing as it's based on X, here's the flexibility in it, but everybody's paying the same amount. One last thing I'll say on that. One of my biggest customers, we're negotiating, doing workshops on this for their massive sales organization. In the contract, they put a paragraph that said, Todd, we want to reserve the right at any time to audit how much your other customers are paying and feel comfort, like know that we are paying the same or less than everybody else. Now, most people hear a paragraph like that and they're like, what, are you crazy? No freaking way. And I'm like, I accepted that in 1 second. Why? Because I know that my pricing is my pricing is my pricing. And that maybe my pricing's gone up over the last couple of years, sure, but it's based on volume, timing of cash, length of commitment, and mutual alignment around signing. So are all my other customers. And I know that that consistency means I can feel confident and comfortable that that clause is fine. And guess what? When they saw me go, yeah, sure, go ahead. They're like, really? Like nobody's ever accepted that. I'm like, I'm teaching you guys negotiating. Like that's going to be the goal anyway. And they're like, we signed, like they signed it instantly. So that's part of the magic of this is that you create that consistency through, as Thomas Herbert Russell says, establishing a sound basis for your pricing.
I mean, I like the fact that sound basis has a sound basis all the way from 115 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, so let's give just some closing words to someone who's excited about what you're saying, and they're like, it's individual contributor account managers. Like, yes, we should be doing. Let's go do Todd's four levers. I'm going to read the book, and I want to get started. How to have this conversation internally? How to talk to your boss about it? How to start going and saying, look, you guys, there's a better way for us to be approaching these things. What do you normally recommend if someone wants to follow up here?
Well, it's funny. So one of my clients, I taught their whole client success and account management team first because somebody had found out about it in the organization. And now in 2 weeks, I'm going back and doing the new business team. And the new business team is like, what is that account management client success team doing? Because they're discounting less. Their forecasting accuracy has gone up. Like all that kind of magic happens is, first, I think start trying it because part of the goal here is, not to change the world in terms of your whole organization through one account manager, but to give you all individually a comfort level with negotiating. Like, again, it doesn't have to be, high stakes. If I don't get all of those hostages out, people die. Like that shouldn't be the way you feel going into a negotiation. So just start there. Pricing's based on those 4 things. Start to have conversations based on that. You're going to feel more comfort. And the fun thing is your customers are going to ask for less because you've done that. And then when you start to see the success, others are going to start to see it. And I've seen that be the kind of the I don't know what the word is, but like that's where it starts to grow.
Awesome. Well, Todd Caponi, thanks for joining me and thanks for giving us this really detailed look at negotiating and how we should be thinking about it differently. I'm excited for 4 Levers Negotiating to be coming out. Congrats on that. And, this is just such a big deal for account managers. I want people to be proactive and confident and feel like they're very able to have these kind of discussions. And so this was super, super helpful. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having you. You can tell I get pretty nerdy about it, but I think it can make a real big difference. So just embrace it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.